Now back to Inside Real Estate. Here's Mike the Realtor.
Hey, folks, we are back. Inside Real Estate, Mike Kruizinga, your host. Website's InsideRealEstateRadio.com, InsideRealEstateRadio.com. And, hey, let's talk a little bit of foundation repair and all that kind of good stuff. We got Jared Benson here over at Perma Pier Foundation Repair. Of course, our foundation partners and their website, permapier.com, permapier.com.
That's right. And we've got a fancy new website we just released last Friday.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's much more user-friendly, a lot of great content, even some great, just a little bit of video on there showing people our process, our values, what we really try to accomplish when we come help a client take a look at their house. So really, really cool. It was a long project, and when it was finally put out there, it was awesome.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we'll have to
right.
take a peek at it.
Yeah, permapier.com.
There
Fanciest
you go.
foundation repair website you'll ever see.
Nice.
Well, cool. Hey, glad to be back, Mike.
Good to see you again.
And
it's been a little while.
It has been a little while since I've been in studio.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about kind of general maintenance before. However, that was just kind of, let's talk about it because that's something our listeners need to hear, right?
Right.
But now we're actually about to go through some season changes where having this on your mind can be very important to not to keep from, but in order to do as much as possible to avoid any possible issues. That's kind of, all homeowners can do whatever you can,
Right.
but you're not guaranteed to keep issues from arising.
Sure.
So I've actually spoken with clients before who, took a look at their house out in, late February one time, a couple years back, and it was a realtor buddy, and it was his friend, and so I personally went and looked at it for him, and one side of his house had dropped like a half inch, which isn't a huge deal. We didn't recommend any repairs, but you could tell it had moved a little bit. And I asked him, I was like, well, man, it is winter, but are you watering your yard at all? He said, no, man, I was saving on my water bill. And
Score.
Yeah, he was like, I'm saving money. Well, what he wasn't thinking about was even though it wasn't 110 degrees every day, all that grass soaks up a little bit and all the trees soak up some, there is still sunlight on the side of the house. And that soil was still losing moisture content. And like we've talked about in multiple other episodes, when it loses moisture content, it starts to shrink, kind of like a sponge. So that side of the house had been getting more sun than the rest of the house, and that whole side was about a half inch down. And so in that instance, I really got to say, hey, man, even though it's winter, you don't have to water as much, but you still need to kind of maintain moisture content around your home. So that's one thing. We are approaching the end of winter, albeit a very warm one. So I know even where I live, I've seen more watering going on just because it's been 70, 80 degrees. And if you don't, your grass is still trying to grow when it's this kind of temperature. Grass has no idea what it's doing this year, though.
Yeah, it's odd.
My
It's just
dog's
so
been
odd,
shedding
yeah.
randomly here and there and stops and starts. And, this weather's screwed everything up.
Yeah, it really has.
But specifically, watering your foundation is the terminology that gets used. And really, I have actually had to explain to some people that doesn't mean putting the hose on your house. So don't actually hit the concrete with the water. It's not helping.
Yes, please don't.
Watering the perimeter of your home, keeping the moisture content around the home, kind of in a consistent level of moisture. And then we're about to move into spring. Well, do you remember? Was it 2 years ago in May when we got like the record rainfall in May ever?
Right.
And after the first few rains, all it took was a light drizzle and everything flooded.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, because everything got all soaked. Yeah.
Everything gets soaked. So the way that clay works is once it hits a certain level, like 100%, moisturized, it's like a barrier. Water doesn't move through it anymore. And that's why the more rain you get, the more you flood with the less rain. So it just runs straight off into the street, into the gutters and everything else. Well, that's really bad for your house because once the soil in your yard is fully moisturized, that water's going to sit there, or it's going to migrate, or it's going to move through under your house. I've seen a couple of homes, not too many, that have recessed living areas. It's really common around the early 80s, late 70s. I had one. My grandparents had one.
Yep.
They still have one. But I would see it where this moisture would move under the house, and there's cracks in the foundation, and the water would just come through, and it would flood.
Wow.
It would flood their recessed living room, and that would be it.
Wow.
And it wasn't plumbing. It wasn't a sewer line. It wasn't a freshwater line. It was just a ton of moisture.
It's just simply water management around your
around
yard
the
and your foundation.
Yeah, and so 2 years ago, we probably installed more drains than we've ever installed in 1 year as a company. And, unfortunately for those homeowners, it's going to be something that they only really need occasionally.
Right.
Maybe every 5-8 years. Maybe they could have got away without it for the most part. But do they want to deal with their house flooding once every 6 years, or do they want to install a drain and keep it there?
Right.
So if you have had flooding that you didn't understand, if you've had water seepage through that bottom brick line, maybe you have your soils a little higher on the house and the water comes through and gets through the wall, drainage, drains, surface drains, French drains can be very valuable coming up in the spring, especially when we tend to get heavy rains. I know I teach a lot of CE classes for realtors, continuing education. And what I teach is consistency is key. If you could keep the soil around your house totally dry, you'd be okay. If you could keep it totally wet, you'd be okay. But Texas doesn't let you do that. So sometimes you just have to install something like a drain that will collect that massive amount of water that's going to come through maybe mid-May this year.
Exactly.
Maybe earlier, maybe later.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at a house with a client yesterday, and of course, it was a typical subdivision where one house is built above the next house, and so on, so on, so on. And so on one side of your house, you're getting your neighbor's water runoff, and since it had been a little bit wet, yesterday, and there was just ponding there, in between the house, and so we talked about that. I said, in all honesty, you're probably going to have to, dig a little trench and throw in a couple drains right here to get this water down to the street, because it's starting to collect right there. And so it's part of what we have to do is water management around our house. And unfortunately, the builders, how they develop neighborhoods, they're not necessarily worried about the water management. It's something that's, post purchase, it's aftermarket type of thing that you have to deal with. And sometimes you might have been in the house for, who knows how many years until you have a really wet season. And all the everything kind of adds up to being right to having to deal with it at your house.
Exactly. I my first home I bought was a 1978 slab in Southwest Arlington, and it had never had foundation issues, but it was in a staggered lot like that. And over the course of many, many years of the water coming off the neighbor's lot and just pulling a little bit with it, pulling a little bit of soil, a soil erosion.
Right, some erosion.
And then, heavily treed neighborhoods. So the trees would, leaves would fall, they'd decay, turn into, some more kind of compost type stuff. The soil line around the house just slowly rose, and, a drain was installed at some point because all this water, now there was something even really close to that brick line around the bottom of the house. And if water gets up there, it can seep through. So, even homes that are older, like you said, over a period of time, the topography of your lot can change slightly and enough to facilitate water seepage into your home, minor flooding, depending on water flow, maybe major flooding. So drains are something that people don't often think of when they think about foundation issues or foundation repairs. But really, when your problem is too much moisture, that's the way you get rid of it. That's the way you help with that.
Right.
Yeah, piers don't help you get rid of moisture.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're going to have to deal with that. And, it's why it's important to, work with a team that has experts, that can tell you this type of thing.
That's absolutely
that
right.
it may just be water management around, your property. You may not need foundation repair, but as I talk to most clients, particularly buyers in particular, look, we look at houses that have foundation repair and they start to get that look on their face. They get a little scared and look, here's the thing. In North Texas, at some point in the home's life, it's going to have foundation repair. It just 9 times out of 10, it just is.
Yep.
It's just because of our soil conditions and oftentimes how they backfill, when they're developing,
what
neighborhoods.
fill they used to pour the foundation on.
Yeah, exactly.
My dogs used to pull bricks up out of the backyard randomly, and I didn't realize this, but apparently a lot of times builders will, in order to get the lot level up, they'll just kind of throw junk there and then throw throw soil on it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe
whatever they've
terrible.
got.
Whatever
yeah.
they got.
Whatever they got, they'll use it
terrible.
and then fill it in.
Yeah, I was finding my dogs were digging holes, and I'd find a couple of bricks here and there throughout the backyard.
Yeah,
Same bricks that my house was built with.
Wow.
So if you have areas in your yard, by the way, where there's spots that don't grow, you can't get bushes to grow in that area or something of that nature, dig a little deeper, and there may not be all soil right there. It may just be junk. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, folks, you got to take care of that water management. Gutters in particular are very important, and then those drains in those areas for ponding for sure.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, folks, look, if you've got any signs, physical. Exterior property, interior of the property, you want to call Perma Pier. They'll send someone out. They'll take care of you. And by the way, if you're thinking about selling, your house, of course, we have the deal that we've talked about many times before. It's worth talking about again because we're about to get into the selling season. If you need to have foundation repair done, you need to have it really done, as part of and in kind of the same time period you're putting your house on the market.
That's right.
You have the program where you'll take payment at closing. You don't have to go out of pocket as a seller to fix the foundation to sell it. And trust me, you're going to get far more money with a foundation repaired home than trying to sell it without that.
Yeah, If people are walking in and they see a foundation issue, and we joke with people, what's the perceived cost of the average foundation repair? A lot of people will say $20,000. That's what they're thinking.
They do.
And so when a buyer comes in and they think it's going to be 20, what do they ask for in reduction on price? Maybe 30? They don't want just the cost.
Right.
And even when they do know the cost is less, they don't want just the cost. So in order to get top dollar, when I tell realtors is, but not every scenario is going to mean you should, but if you want top dollar, you're going to need to do the repairs up front.
Yeah, especially if it's obvious. If it's obvious, we come in and we see it, then it's going to impact the sell. Then you want to definitely take care of it.
Don't scare people.
Yeah, people get scared, and it's going to limit your pool of buyers. So all of a sudden, you'll be getting offers from investors that are 60%, of
ARV,
what value is exactly. So good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. This was a good topic. I think it's really timely today, especially with where we are at in the year and the season changes coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, folks, trust the folks over at permapier.com. We've just been talking to good old Jared. Go to the website, permapier.com. Make sure you mention that you heard them on the radio here on Inside Real Estate. We're going to take a short break. See you in a few.